Let's welcome you to this Local Voices Liberia Media Network podcast sponsored by Internews Liberia Media Development Program with funding from USAID. You can also download this podcast or listen to it again by going to our website www.localvoicesliberia.com or our Facebook page at Local Voices Liberia.
In 2018, the United States Agency for International Development opted to fund a certain radio and TV program titled Development Matters. This program is intended to serve as a stimulant for discussing and finding solutions to a wide range of development issues in Liberia, talking about dual citizenship, public-private partnership for schools, decentralization, healthcare financing, and several other major issues in the country. These are just some of the very important topics many Liberians talk about no matter where they are in the country, whether in the city, in the village, or outside of the country. For us here at Local Voices Liberia, topical issues about national development should not be centralized only in Monrovia. So, as we viewed the TV program on the day it was released, we then decided to take some of the very important issues to Liberians outside of Monrovia. We thought that it was important to decentralizing it because decentralization is a key component of development, and not just to keep them only in Monrovia on the central stage where only the educated class or the elites will be discussing these very important development issues. So in this podcast series, we will take you on a journey to Bassa County, Grand Bassa County, and Lofa County. You will hear locals speaking about these key national issues and also making recommendations.
And that is the issue of this decentralization. If you elect your commissioners, your superintendent, your primary chief, who will not be under the direct influence of the people out there, but they will be directly responsive to you. Trust you me that things will change. It might appear to be difficult, but it's easy. If they have been tested in other countries, it's working.
But we need to encourage them. You won't be there, but I will face the challenge because it happened to other countries. 1 or 2 years, they went through it. People died because of their own negligence. Some people respect money more than their lives. So we got to encourage the people that this thing is our own thing, is important. If you are not healthy, your community is not healthy. If we have more than 4, 5, 6 persons in the community, that community is into it.
The concept of the public-private partnership in the educational sector is to recognize an alternative option for education, for better education.
It will be a little bit more for our own health. When we do that, it will help us a lot.
In these 3 counties, locals discussing these issues, giving their critical and salient views about Liberia's main contemporary developmental issues. Follow us on this journey and find out what Liberians outside of Monrovia are saying about decentralization, healthcare financing, and public-private partnership for Liberian schools. My name is Arthur Sampeni.
Episode 1: Public-Private Partnership for Schools.
Buchanan is often referred to by many as a city of hospitality. The beautiful beaches, the fishing towns, the warm people, they all make this city very exotic. The energy on the street here, like here, the people that are passing around, carrying on their normal business, the motorcyclists are all honking across the street. All of these things sum up why people say this is where the nation's hospitality begins. My colleague Henry Boluma and I, along with our team, have traveled all the way from Monrovia, some 88 miles away from this port city, just to find out a lot about this city. But most importantly, we want to also allow Liberians here to join the debate about public-private partnership for schools. What are the advantages and disadvantages? Is this PPP model an antidote to our education problem? Henry Boluma, what do you make of it?
Yeah, Alpha, we have already gathered here that there are about 3 schools in Buchanan that are piloting the PPP project in Liberia. So, which means we expect a very interesting community media forum in this part of the country, Buchanan City.
Good morning. Good morning to all. I think it's a great day being here. I think we are here for a purpose.
So that was a very basic Buchanan Street. In most cases, much of the commercial activities happen there, but we've just moved away from the street now. We are now in the hall, located right here on the famous fairgrounds. Anybody who comes to Buchanan will have a sense of what the fairgrounds is. It's where all the big programs are held. When the government top officials come in the city, they're where they go to discuss with the local leadership of this county. The building we are in right now is not the biggest one of all, which is the massive Unification Pavilion Hall. Our venue here is the Youth Center. It's a building sizable enough to host about 500 people, and the number of people here in this building just shows how interesting such a topic is for this community. We also have over 100 students here. They all dress in their regular uniforms. I also see several different uniform colors. That means we have different schools here. I think I see like one set of uniform, 2, 3, 4, 5, like around 6 uniforms here. Teachers, parents, and a good number of members of the disabled community, interestingly, have also made it here to this community media forum in Buchanan City.
The next thing will be showing small and show on the technical development matter.
Hello and welcome to Let's Debate It on Development Matters. I'm your moderator, Reverend Rita Townsend, Vice President for Institutional Advancement and Associate Professor at William V.S. Tubman University in East Harper, Maryland County. As you may know, there are private for-profit entities that have taken over and are running several elementary schools across the country which receive funding from the government. Is it good for our educational system? Or does it represent an unwise use of government resources that undermine the public school system? So to answer these questions today, we will debate the issue, public-private partnerships, the key to a reformed education sector. For the affirmative, we have with us Urias Brooks. He has worked in the areas of primary education. For the negative, we have Anderson Miyame of the Coalition for Transparency and Accountability in Education. You may recognize it as COTE. Gentlemen, I want to say welcome. We now go to Urias Brooks for the affirmative. Let's debate it. Urias, you have 3 minutes.
I do support public-private partnership. Public-private partnership provides the much-needed paradigm shift in our education sector.
What is the paradigm shift? Let's look at the current paradigm in our education sector. The Ministry of Education provides teaching within public schools. The same ministry provides monitoring and supervision of teachers within the schools. This is a conflict of interest. The ministry cannot evaluate itself, and it is not objective in the evaluation. The result shows that our students are failing, they are poor schools. So we need a paradigm shift in our education sector. And PPP provides that. This will lead to transparency, accountability, and efficiency within our schools. Looking at enrollment from the piloted project in public-private partnership school in Liberia, enrollment remains at 80% of our students, retention of teachers at 90%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Now let's hear from the negative as we join Mr. Anderson Miame.
Let me indicate here that I am not against just public-private partnership. What I oppose is for-profit injection in the education system. I'm opposed to PPP or for-profit PPP in the education sector for the following reasons. One, it commercializes education. Education is a public good that needs not to be commercialized. When we commercialize education, we sacrifice quality and students' welfare for profit. And what we have in the sector currently is that many of the providers, especially the international providers, are for-profit entities that have come to maximize profit at the expense of the education sector. PSL or the PPP providers are not giving leverage to independent investigators to access schools. Third, PPP is not sustainable. The current PPP is largely donor-driven. Donor funding, we have records to show that donor funding dry up. And when that happens with this PPP, it is going to be detrimental to the sector in terms of transitioning to the old system.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now let's see where the audience stands. By a show of hands, let's see who is for the affirmative. All right, thank you very much. Now let's see who is for the negative. When we began, we had 3 for the affirmative and 2 against. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today. Let's debate it on development matters. I have been your moderator, Reverend Rita Townsend.
It seems many of these students and parents in the audience are probably readjusting their opinions now about the PPP model after watching the debate on the program Development Matters screen right here in this hall. I can't tell what people in the audience are thinking, but I can assure you we will find out very, very soon. Seeing the expressions on their faces, they were all very attentive during the screening of the Development Matters TV program. But later, the pockets of chats at the end of the video explains how relevant this topic is to many people here in Buchanan City. For now, the stage is being set for the main showdown, and there are 4 persons here on this panel, 2 ladies and 2 gentlemen. I understand they are all residents of Buchanan City. These panelists are going to give their own perspective about the public-private partnership for schools model in Liberia. There's a pilot project ongoing in Buchanan City. Especially 3 schools are using this model to test it and see whether it's applicable across the country. So these panelists have first-hand experience as it relates to this PPP model. So let's expect a very, very interesting and intriguing discussion.
The panel discussion on public-private partnership school program for Liberia school system. We'll be talking about the advantages and what the disadvantages.
Hello? So first of all, the concept of the public-private partnership in the educational sector is to recognize an alternative option for education, for better education. What it also does is it looks at 4 main pillars. If you really study the issue of the public and the private-public partnership in the educational sector, what it seeks to address is to increase the enrollment of students in the country. And it also improves the educational outcome. That is one thing that it also does. It improves the educational outcome. It reduces cost for education. At some point in time, it reduces cost, and there's one of the key reasons to allow some people who are marginalized, or some people who find it difficult to go to school, other parents who find it so challenging, and to send their children maybe to private school or to some level of school that they may not be able to financially afford. So when we look at the disadvantages it has, it also limits the public authority in the investment. Government will not have 100% authority over that investment. Government will put more money there, but don't forget to know that you are also dealing with a private institution, and you are establishing that agreement. And so government cannot have 100% authority over that like government does with the public school. So that is one of the disadvantages.
The advantages that I look into is you will have more schools added onto the school that you already have. You will have support for some of the schools that if you have established all of them together, that support would not have gone to them. And you will have increase in the number of students attending the PPP school. The disadvantage which was highlighted by the principal is parents' unwillingness to support their own children because there is something called free around the corner. There are some disadvantages that we can look at in the public-private partnership that we all can see as a reasonable argument that can help the partnership in Liberia. The public-private partnership can increase access to quality education for all, especially poor children who live in remote, undeserved communities, and for children in minority population. For example, if you were to leave from here and you walk to Vitua, or use a car, you go to Vitua, go GCD, you go to Diambowe, and other part of Grand Bassa that is remote, you find out children are there, they are not going to school. They are not going to school. Why are they not going to school? Because government support is limited to reach to that point. Sometimes all government activity is done in a centralized position. I have a former teacher. I taught in rural schools, and I know the challenges are there. And we see those challenges are clear. They are all written on the wall. So you see the public-private partnership, Liberia has graduated over the period of years. Liberia now is in the state of recovery. This is one of the best ways that we as a country can develop through reconstruction of our educational sector is the partnership with private institutions to ensure that we have things happening for the betterment of our students. This is my idea. I do support the public-private partnership as to help government on the project. Thank you.
So this is a pretty exciting discussion going on here. And I told you earlier that the questions and comments keep pouring in from the audience. The room is very, very occupied with mixed views right now. Some are for and some are against. But I think many of these panelists, almost all of the panelists here, have been expressing some level of optimism about the PPP model. Students also want to have their say. They want to be heard. Parents and several others, including, like I said, a good number of disabled people are here in the audience. They are all scrambling to be recognized by the moderator, and let's expect them to have their say. Right now, I can see several fingers up. I see around 6, 7 persons have questions for the panelists, or maybe they just want to have their say. Indeed, the PPP is a topical issue here in Buchanan City.
All right, my name is Simon Nkaya. I'm from the Harryville Intellectual Forum, and I'm one of the female teachers in Green Bassa. We are in the classroom. For example, teachers, they are not even getting a pay on time. They are even getting on payroll. Number 2, the test score are not even given. Before you go and perform your note or prepare your note, you have to go other schools. Once they carry it, you ask them for that note or for that pamphlet and prepare your note. Their test score are not even enough. And they bring 5 or 3 test score enough. Chalk are not given. We buy our own chalk. But if we have the private partnership in our country or our country, it will help. Because the people will pay you well, you will go to work on time, and you will be monitored, and you will have your classroom management well. If you go to work on time and monitor, and you get your report pay and your report lesson and your textbook, that child will go well and will have good education. So I take the private partnership.
My name is Tano Roberts. I am against the PPP because the government schools, they are very important to the poor people. According to the information I got, the government spends percentage to the PPP. Why is it the government can take the money and spend it to the government school to improve the government school education? But today, government are not paying attention to the government school. Then they're taking money, spending it to a partner. Why is it they can spend the money to buy more desks, to buy more books, to bring qualified instructors in the government school? So I support government to sustain their own government school, then to have partnership with other NGOs to carry the taxpayer money to another country. It is not necessary. Thank you.
I'm David Dyke, a teacher at the Benson River Elementary School. With the PPP, well, we could say they are doing well. We can't say they are doing well. What kind of a building have they put up?
Student, medicine for the Jersey area United Methodist School. When the people taking our money, putting in the comments, you put their body teacher will say, today I'm going to account for our own pay. I will stay pay. They won't pay attention to the children. So in class, when they see the children lot, are you all Brian? So the data and support the PPP.
Definitely an interesting community media forum here in Buchanan City. How do people now see the PPP model? Let's hear from some of them who were in the audience what they have to say now following that intense discussion.
Yeah, for me, I came to actually understand the benefit in the public-private partnership and the risks involved. That is the advantages and disadvantages.
As it relates to the PPP, it is being in collaboration with government, and the PPP is being headed by NGOs. And like I said, in the NGOs projects are projects that are not, continuity. It has to do with time. And once that time over is expired, So if they go there, what becomes of the government? Because if you breastfeed somebody and the time come you leave the person, that means you leave the person empty. You already made the person lazy. So the government will not be willing again to have that 100% support, and it will become something negative on the aspect of the young people that try to achieve education today.
If the PPP is empowered to take over the school sector, the government should do everything possible to make their workers be employed, and secondly, to prepare everything before they take over.
I am looking at the sustainability aspect of it. Today you train people, you improve the system. Why if your support go tomorrow, what become of the training you gave? How will the children continue with the kind of quality education the government seeks to achieve through the PPP? Now the second thing is, who plays the monitoring role? And so those are the different things for me I wanted the panelists to really address, so that in the audience we can understand how to discuss the issue when it comes to the public-private partnership.
I learned today that if we accept the PPP, our education system will be standardized and will be strengthened, and our monitoring system will be very strong.
What I learned today about the PPP, I learned about the PPP to upbuild this education background in this society. So I really want to be happy to tell the government or those who are doing that to continue to be more advanced.
It's important to note here that intellectual discourse is the foremost means of discussing national issues. When people talk about the issues, in most cases, they always find a way forward. So, Henry, what do you think?
Alpha, actually, I'm convinced that creating a platform for every Liberian to share their views on national issues is the better way to ensuring sustainable development in this country. And so, let us see what happens when we take our next trip to Bassa County in Western Liberia.
And definitely, Henry, I understand you're from Western Liberia, specifically Bassa County. And in most cases, there's several challenges we understand there, and there are several issues that people have often talked about. What are some of those things that are very, interesting to the locals there?
The locals in Bassa are concerned about road connectivity, the road network. Bassa is a landlocked place, and they are also concerned about the health issue, and they are also concerned about education. So those are key things that they like to have discussion around.
Definitely, sure. And we are also very convinced that those listening to this podcast will continue with us on our next trip to Bassa County. Thanks for listening. I'm Alpha Stankwini.
This Local Voices Liberia Media Network podcast sponsored by Internews Liberia Media Development Program with funding from USAID. You can also download this podcast or listen to it again by going to our website www.localvoices.com or our Facebook page at Local Voices Liberia.